station probably by tomorrow. And although we've pretty much protected an hour and a half for this webinar, I don't think we're going to need all that time, but we'll see. So we'll turn off the webcam and get started. Well, advancing the slides does seem to be a trick here. Here we go. All right, now our time together. We do have a lot to cover this afternoon, and to be honest, each section we're going to speak about probably in the presentation could be a presentation onto itself. Today we'll have a quick review of some very fundamental aspects and guiding principles of residence council. We will touch on what a resident council is and what a resident council meeting is. A very important role of the resident council assistant will be examined. We'll look at leadership structures and models and examine strengths and challenges. We'll also look at the steps involved in beginning to move forward to a different type of model or structure for residence council. And as I said, there'll be time for questions, thoughts, and comments following. So, what is OARC? It stands for the Ontario Association of Residence Councils. It started way back in 1981 by a group of residents living in long-term care homes who wanted to make decisions about their life, and in doing so, they wanted their voices to be heard. OARC has a staff of 5, of which I am one, and OARC is governed by a board of directors that is made up exclusively of residents who live in long-term care homes across the province of Ontario. On the board, there is a capacity for 10 directors. Currently, there are a couple of vacant positions, and I would like to invite any residents attending today to get in touch with OARC if you have an interest in working at a more involved level, a provincial level, representing not only the residents in your home, but representing residents across our province to the Ministry of Health and to other stakeholders. The board provides governance to the organization and guidance to staff. And with that board guidance, the staff can speak with confidence on behalf of the residents across the province. Culture change. Having worked so long in long-term care, I've seen this slow transition that has been taking place over the years. When I first started in long-term care, there was the belief that the professionals knew what was best for the person living in long-term care homes. It was based on an institutional model of care. I remember vividly when people came to live in the long-term care home, the schedules and the routines for that home were explained. And there was an expectation that the new resident would follow those rules. There was little thought to what a new resident would prefer. The care itself was very much focused on what a resident couldn't do. Thank heavens that has changed, or shall I say is changing, to a model where it is understood that it's the resident that knows the best for themselves, and the care is focused on their strengths and what they're able to do on their own or with some assistance. And so that leads us right into resident-centered care. You may hear this resident-centered care, or perhaps person-centered care, but it is that moving from the institutional model of care to the life-affirming social or resident-centered model, where each and every resident is recognized as a valued human being whose personhood is respected and encouraged. Just a quick insight into the Long-Term Care Homes Act. The first two lines, if anyone has ever looked at it, the first two lines of the preamble in the Long-Term Care Homes Act reads, "The people of Ontario and their government believe in resident-centered care." This new legislation came into force in 2010, and it embraces culture change, which we just talked about. Some points in the Act are worthwhile noting: that every long-term care home in Ontario must have a resident council. The Act gives residents who are living in long-term care homes a stronger collective voice. The Act is written in the context that there is relationships built in the long-term care homes, and the center of those relationships are the residents. The Act has increased the powers of resident council and lays out the scope of influence that each resident council has in their home. It says that each resident council shall have help to carry out its work in the form of an assistant who is appointed by the administrator and who is accepted by the residents' council. So just as an aside, I think right now there's about 631 long-term care homes in Ontario, with about 75 to 76,000 people living in those homes. So to think about it another way, there are 630 some resident councils. So you're certainly not alone. So what is a residents' council? And this is, again, just a really quick overview. But it's a formal advisory body made up of every resident residing in the home. Resident council provides advice and recommendations to the home based on resident suggestions for improving care and their quality of life. It is special and unique. It is not run by the home, but it is supported by the home. Every person who lives in the home is a member of the Residents' Council, and number 20 of the Resident Council Bill of Rights says every resident has the right to participate in Residents' Council. Resident Council represents the collective voice of all residents. Not every resident will attend Resident Council meetings, but it's important that all residents who want to attend receive any necessary assistance to get there. Also, when making recommendations and voicing concerns and ideas, those residents not able to attend should be kept in thought by everyone in attendance. As I said, resident councils are unique, and please remember, what works for one resident council will not work for all, but residents' councils are encouraged to reach out and network with other councils in your area or perhaps in the company to support each other with ideas and suggestions. And then the work of Residents' Council is based on the needs and values of the residents residing in their home. What is a Resident Council meeting? Resident Council meetings are safe, trusting places where residents come together with their peers to discuss what is important to them. No one else attends Resident Council without an invitation. It's a council of equals. Democratic decision-making processes are part of Resident Council. All residents have the right to have input into life within their long-term care home, and the Resident Council is the vehicle through which this can be accomplished. As already noted, all residents need to be remembered in the decision-making process at the meetings. Resident councils also identify where improvements are needed. They're also perfect opportunities to acknowledge and celebrate what is working well in their home. Often in a resident council meeting is kind of thought in a negative light, where there is a lot of negativity that comes through. But I do encourage resident councils to really use a council meeting to talk about the good things that are going on in the homes too, because there are very, very good things happening in long-term care homes. And then the last thing, of course, are the minutes. And minutes of meetings are kept. Resident council decides whether to post the meetings or not. That's up to resident council. And OARC recommends that minutes are approved prior to posting and prior to notifying the administrator of any concerns. So before we look at meeting structures and leadership teams, it's really important for everyone to understand that there's no correct way or incorrect way for resident councils to organize itself. What works for one will not necessarily work for another. What is important is that the residents' council choose a structure that works for them, that allows the council to be effective and the collective voice for all residents in that long-term care home. So we're going to think of resident councils as a whole right now. The whole home has resident council members. Every person living there is a member. And the way the meetings are set up often depend on, well, to start with, how big the home is perhaps. This town hall meeting model tends to be very effective in smaller homes when everyone, all interested members, can get to the meetings, and often do. All residents are invited to attend and participate in every meeting that's held in the home. So it's a town hall meeting. Now this is representative or board of directors model, and this model would work in larger homes where there are perhaps individual areas or neighborhoods or even multiple floors in the home. Each area or floor would have a representative. That representative would represent all of the residents living in that one area or on that one floor. Some homes who use this model have scheduled meetings on each floor to share ideas, thoughts, and information. And then these small area-based meetings would be chaired by the representative, who would then bring the invitation or the information on as they attend the larger resident council meeting representing those residents on their area. I have met one resident council who uses this type of model, but then about 4 times a year, they have a large town hall model meeting. So all residents who want to come can come down and see how the meetings are going. As I have mentioned, no matter what the structure is, it's important that residents who want to attend resident council meetings are assisted to do so. This may mean changing up the daily routine or having someone assigned to accompany the resident to the area of the meeting. The blended model that you're looking at here is a bit of the other two, the town hall and the board of directors. It is custom made. That model will be custom made and will be based on the needs of the individual residents' council. Now the commonality in all the 3 models that we've just looked at is that each has a leadership component. Those whose role involves leading the residents' council in their home. This group may be referred to as the Residents' Council Executive, or the Board of the Residents' Council, or the leadership team. When I was working, everyone thought the Resident Council was a 1-hour meeting held on the 3rd Thursday at 10 o'clock every month. Further, it also was felt that those residents who attended the resident council meetings were the only members of resident council. So I do ask that you remember that all residents belong to council, and some attend the monthly meetings, and some of those residents actively participate at the monthly meetings. So let's have a look at the leadership group or that executive or whatever the name is that is used at your resident council. This structure is probably one that is most familiar. This is what most resident councils have been using over the years. In fact, the information you shared with OARC prior to today indicated that just under 50% of your councils were indeed using this traditional leadership model. In this model, there are distinct positions with one officer for each position. Each officer has specific responsibilities and accountabilities. And then there may also be subcommittees or area reps. Subcommittees may include things like a welcoming committee, pastoral committee, sick and visiting, palliative committee, are some of the subcommittees that you might find in this traditional or executive model. I have noted that a couple of councils have more than one person in some of the roles. There may be two residents who share the role of president. In this case, these two residents would take turns performing the functions of that role. It is also noted that the role of secretary is becoming difficult to fill, and the residence council assistant often is requested by council to take the minutes at the meeting. Now the shared responsibilities. And council members may decide, and this may be a decision that will be discussed and talked about, but may decide to combine all of the executive positions and all of those subcommittees and whatnot into what is referred to as the Residence Council Leadership Team. And perhaps they won't use traditional titles. This type of team collectively assumes the accountabilities of the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and as I say, any other subcommittees or area reps. Your resident council can decide whether titles would be used or not and what you feel would work well. Sharing, though, like this, the sharing of the administrative responsibilities across the leadership team is attractive to many people and many resident councils because it encourages the elected people of council to work cooperatively as a team or a group. It dilutes the pressure of feeling specialized expertise is needed for certain assignments and gives each leadership team member an opportunity to learn and use different skills. There's some other strengths, I think, that have been noted with the resident council leadership team. Spreading the responsibility. Instead of having 3 or 4 people responsible for everything, there are a number of people who each can do a little bit and together get the job done. It is a team effort, and so it's easier to get people to volunteer because of that team effort. Responsibilities are taken care of through a willingness, a wanting to be there, and strengths of each resident instead of a role definition. More voices to have more ideas, suggestions, and thoughts. More points of view to make a collective decision. And resident council is spread through the home. So when there's more people working together as a team, it's spread throughout the home, and residents in the home have more people then to approach if they have thoughts or ideas or would like something passed on or talked about at resident council. Couple of more strengths. With better representation from the home areas, there's better representation from the population of the home. And because of that, resident council becomes that collective voice that we talk about. It increases individual confidence to try new things. It's sometimes really hard to do something when you're by yourself or when you're doing it alone. But when you're not alone and you have the support of other team members, sometimes you will just take that extra step to try something new and to encourage new thinking. And then deeper relationships with members, other residents, staff, management, because each one of those groups are working towards the same goal. There's a sense of trust, respect, and shared commitment amongst all. Now, there are some challenges with the leadership team model. It takes time for new groups of people to work successfully as a team. And this is the same for the residence council leadership teams. The willingness to set aside personal differences in order to achieve a common goal and different personalities can all play a part in the transition to a leadership team model. The logistics of getting the team together to make a decision can sometimes be a challenge. It's a lot easier to get a couple of people together instead of having to try to get a group of people together. And then the last challenge can be the idea of the change itself. And just like anything that's changing, things can become concerning and it can cause some anxiety. And often you will hear the phrase, nope, it's just fine the way it is. I want to take a minute just to have a quick look at the role of the resident council assistant, because the assistant has a tremendous responsibility in the successfulness of the residence council. The duties will vary from home to home, and even in the same home, sometimes duties vary from day to day and month to month. The assistant is appointed by the administrator, and the assistant is acceptable to the council. A safe, trusting, respectful relationship between the residence council and their assistant takes time to work to nourish and nurture, but it is absolutely necessary if residence council are going to flourish and be effective. The assistant is not a representative of the licensee, nor is the assistant a member of council. The assistant is to keep identified issues confidential when requested. Of course, the only caveat to that is the abuse and neglect, and that has to be reported immediately. When the resident council needs some support in the work that they are doing, it is the assistant who provides that support in whatever form it takes. It is important that the assistant know and understand what the Long-Term Care Home Act says about resident council, so they can inform residents of their rights, roles, responsibilities, and scope of influence. Common support measures often taken on by the assistant is, as I mentioned, taking the minutes at meetings, perhaps assisting with the banking of council, assisting with fundraising efforts, setting up for meetings, photocopying, working with that newly formed leadership team, assisting with the bylaws of council, and providing support with the facilitation of the meetings and the discussions. Assistants, however, are reminded to resist the temptation to do it all for the residents. Instead, the assistant finds and offers means by which the resident can do it for themselves. The following slide illustrates this nicely, I think. When trying to engage residents, consider, can a resident do this by themselves? Can a resident do this if I ask them? Can a resident do this if I assist them? And finally, if I must do it, can a resident be at my side? This slide is talking about building on the strengths of individuals. Things like reading, talking, welcoming. Perhaps someone can post minutes. Someone might be able to be the timekeeper. Someone else might be able to help approve the agenda. With the leadership team model, as I have mentioned, already the job of the resident council is made easier because many people doing their small part get the big job done. So, moving to the leadership team model. What is the process? And how do you start to make the move? Well, the first thing, of course, is discussion. Identify why you are considering a change from what you're doing now. Perhaps no one is interested in taking an executive position. The work of council just isn't being done or getting done. And sometimes it's because there's the feeling we have too many people with cognitive changes to be able to have a residence council. So have a discussion. First of all, decide where you're at and where you want to be. And then examine the options. Look at the options for leadership. Think about what we've talked about just now and how the fact isn't there one fits all model. So think about what will work best for your resident council. Brainstorm. Create some excitement about what the change might look like. Next step, decide on a model you're going to try. Decide on a trial period for that model. Number 4. Decide how long. Put a 2 to 3 month time limit on it, just so that you give it a good try, but you don't get too tired if it's not working. So 3 to 4 months, and then after that trial period, evaluate it. Look at it and decide, did it work? Did it meet our expectations? Is it working well? Does it need some tweaking perhaps? And with this evaluation, you may well think, you know what? No, we thought it was going to work, but it's not. And you go back up to the discussion square again and you start again and start to move forward. However, when you get to the evaluation and you know resident council says, yeah, for us, it's working well, it's at that point then that I really suggest that you get the updated bylaws for the resident council looked after. I just wanted to have some last thoughts about a leadership team. As I say, we have gone through an awful lot of information and ideas and thoughts, all kinds of stuff in a very short period of time. But please remember, whatever you choose, whatever works for your residence council is okay. A leadership team is inclusive. and represents all residents. It promotes a safe place and a sense of belonging for all resident council members. It shares its accomplishments and successes. And it encourages participation and input from all resident council members. So thank you. Thank you for this time, and I'm not sure, I think Jennifer was maybe in the office tracking questions if there were any, and I'll have a look here on the chat box and see if there is anything. Thank you, Jennifer, for noting about the bylaws. Okay. Okay, so we've got a question, and it says, when using area meetings from the home area prior to the resident council meeting, do the stipulations for time, response, and concern apply, or does it only apply to the resident council meeting where the area representative bring the concern forward? Well, thank you very much. I can honestly say that that question has been asked before, but you know, as I think about it and I see how resident council would work together, my assumption here is that once a month you're having the meetings in the different areas or on the floor or neighborhood or whatever the unit is called, and then everything from those meetings are brought down to the general resident council meeting, to the monthly meeting. And I suppose you could do it either way, but my thought would be that if it came to the general resident council meeting, all of the concerns from wherever it's going, again, the simple sharing of that information may well open up discussions that the concerns or thoughts, whatever it is systematic, is more throughout the whole home than just in one area. And whether it is an issue for other people or not, they would get to hear the answer and get an understanding for the decisions that are made. So my thought would be, as I say, that those issues on different areas come down each month to the monthly meeting, and from there they are written up, approved minutes, and then the information is passed on to the administrator. I will have some discussion with my colleagues here at OARC, and if there's any other thoughts, we will certainly let you know. I hope that was helpful. Any thoughts about that? Okay. Oh, Jen got this. That no, not all councils have to fundraise. Thank you, Jen. You're right. You're right there. Does anyone else have any questions? Is there anything else in the chat box for anybody? Well, then perhaps, boy, we've really got done here in lots of time. Let me just share with you that you, the participants, the attendees, will be receiving an evaluation link to complete an evaluation of this webinar, and also the link to the to the YouTube channel, so that you can again access this for if you'd like to listen to it again, or share with residents in your home, or whatever.
Hi. Do you
So
have a
again,
question?
if there's no questions,
Hello?
I'm thrilled to think there was 35. That's
Hello?
yes.
Not working very good. Hello?
No, I'm sorry, I can't hear. There are questions.
Hello?
We've got Jennifer here.
I'm the tech support, which is kind of scary, really.
I'm just not getting any
There.
questions. So Jen's
Hello?
finding them.
Okay.
So bear with us.
Hello? I wanted to make a comment
Come
that
into my office.
because of outbreaks
Okay.
affecting our meetings.
Okay, so hang in. I'm just heading to Jen's office. Apparently she's got questions and I have.
I'm so sorry, everyone. We're just having a bit of technical difficulty. So I would ask, please, that you go ahead and ask that question again. Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello, can you hear us?
We can hear you. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, okay, thank you. This is Midland Gardens.
Hello. Hi, Bruce. How are you?
Pretty good, thank you. We had some technical difficulty here. But we've been trying for a few minutes to say hello to you. We have a problem that maybe other homes are having. We are having a lot of outbreaks. And when we want to have our meetings, unfortunately, we can only have a few people attend our meetings. Hello?
Yes, it's Susan. Can you hear me okay, Bruce?
Yes?
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, you're certainly not alone. It is outbreak season, and that's what happens, and it is difficult when you can't get a good turnout. It will be up to the resident council as to how you would like to deal with it. Is it going to be something that is held after the outbreak is over? Or are you just going to cancel and wait until the next month when the regular meeting would be held? It will be up to resident council as to how they want to deal with it. I do suggest, though, that once the outbreak is over, that everyone really try to get around to the residents and see how things are going, and if there's any issues that are really outstanding during the time of the outbreak, and so that when the next meeting is held, all of the concerns are timely. Okay? Does that help? It doesn't answer your question, but it's certainly it's certainly probably the best that I can give you right now is for resident councils each to make your own decision as to how you will deal with meetings that have to be canceled, particularly because of outbreak.
Well, part of the problem is I think we're 90% of the time an outbreak, and if we do have some time without an outbreak, unfortunately, maybe a day or before the meeting, we have an outbreak.
We've only had a day without an outbreak.
Hello?
Oh. You've been in outbreak for some time, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, almost the whole year we're on outbreak.
Oh.
So far in 2017, we have been off outbreak for about 3 days, and it just continues. We have been trying to hold the resident council, but we can only do so much because really and truly we cannot be encouraging residents to go between floors.
Right. Do you have your meetings in a more isolated spot, perhaps like a down on one floor where they're able to come down if they're feeling well without going into areas where there's full-blown outbreak?
Well, no. Council has chosen to trial on the floors to make it easier for residents, but with our Toronto Public Health partners, they're also giving us strict guidelines of where we can congregate, and usually even if the residents are well, really and truly we shouldn't still be congregating.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know whether we've had anybody put on the chat that they have the same issue or not. Again, I'm not really too sure what the answer is if you're constantly in an outbreak situation. So let us think about it, and I do ask anyone that's on this webinar, if you are experiencing that yourself, if you could let us know, and we can pass on how the rest of you manage this kind of an issue.
Just to add to that for 1 second, it's having a spin-off effect, because once that happens, we have to cancel all our outings. We canceled a dinner club. We've canceled bingo. We've canceled a number of activities, and it's very hard. It's very hard to get residents active and involved in the council when so many things are being canceled on a daily basis.
Yes, it is difficult, and as I say, you're certainly not the only home. This happens in all of the long-term care homes, and we hear it quite often. I'm gonna say thank you, and I'll just have a look and see if there's anything else before we run out of time. Okay, I've got a question here. What signs indicate that a transition to a different leadership model is recommended? Well, again, I think you will know in your home. If you're having whatever kind of model you're using now, if you're having problems getting people to come to the meetings, take the positions of the meeting, you know, that is probably a time to really have a look at it and say, we are not doing the job that we would like to be doing. How and what can we do to make it better?
Hello, my name's Jennifer. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, it's Susan.
Hi. To further that comment about what signs indicate that a transition to a different leadership model is recommended, what we found a couple of years back, we had a gentleman who had been president for probably maybe 18 months and had been very successful in the role. Then it came time for elections again, and we really recognized that he was no longer capable of chairing a meeting. We just knew that he wouldn't be successful in that role. So I was really feeling sick about it because he still wanted to do it. So I spoke with, I believe it was Dee at the association, and she kind of recommended moving to the leadership model, and it's been fabulous. It gave him an opportunity to still stay on the leadership team, and he still feels, and he still to this day, we've done this for probably almost 2 years now, and he still feels like he's part of the residence council executive, if you will, but he doesn't have the responsibility of chairing a meeting or anything that kind of any of the other extra things, but he's supported by other residents, and it really works. It really has worked well for our home to move to the leadership model.
Thank you very, very much for those positive words.
You're welcome.
Is there any more questions? No, you're good. Okay, well, there isn't any more questions apparently, and so I do sincerely want to thank you for attending the webinar. And again, just to reiterate, there will be an evaluation sent out, and you will be able to take this webinar off of the YouTube channel to share it with others in your home. Thanks very much, and Have a good rest of the day.